Well, I've been fortunate enough to meet Zifo at many events, Future Labs, for example, Biotech X, and I have to say the team has always come over as very enthusiastic, very knowledgeable, and actually I've sat in on a couple of their presentations as well. And I have to say their presentations actually are very interesting as well. Even to a layperson like me, who's not a scientist, they do explain things in a way which is easy to understand, which I think is very important because you can take for granted that everybody understands what you're talking about. And the open language is actually easily understandable, which is really good. The other thing I think is that they are very, very knowledgeable, and what's interesting is coming to this event. They're a company which I find is quite collaborative. And this event actually emphasises that, because they've obviously got sponsors here, but other people are here to attend, because they understand that actually it's more about the subject and getting people buying that the topic itself is important, which means there's a market there in the first place. And without being able to do that, you can't do that. And so they're not defensive or protective of their knowledge, they're happy to share it, because they realise that we're all in the same industry, and actually there's enough business to go around for everybody, because there's such a huge, huge market. And buying actually in the digitalisation space, despite slight acceleration, I think, post-COVID, because pre-COVID there was a lot of reticence, but COVID accelerated that. I think there was an acceleration, but again, things are changing so fast. You know, AI has been spoken about for the last 3-4 years. Every event I go to, regardless whether it's a lab show or whatever show, AI comes in to all the talks. But it is interesting to come here and to talk about how AI is actually being implemented across those different phases of the value chain. Because people talk about AI, but as I think you said in your presentation actually, what does AI actually mean? It means different things to different people. And so just explaining to people what the differences are and how it gets implemented in those different phases, I think is very, very important, because I think a lot of people have got lots of misconceptions about AI and how it can be used. And listening to some of the talks as well, and even one of the questions I think you got asked, you know, like people are very critical of AI compared to if it was a human doing the same thing. But I think that's quite right, because if we are not critical about AI, it'd be very easy to take everything that AI does as correct. And as I think it's already been proven on many, many occasions, AI is built on the biases of the people who program it. And so whether it's in science or anything you use AI for, it has already got its built-in biases in. And that's, I think, the biggest danger from a layman's point of view in terms of trusting AI. Particularly when you look at pharma and life science, against post-COVID, I think people have realised, even in clinical trials, how much bias there is in clinical trials, with demographics, certain demographics being excluded or not included in clinical trials, which have affected how drugs are effective with certain populations within the community. So I think that is a fundamental thing which needs to be resolved and regulated, is how do we try and make AI unbiased as much as you can. I see you as someone which is sort of overlaying a lot of the other sort of technologies, if you like, around lab digitalization. And also, I think the positioning is often how you present yourselves as well, because again, as I said at the beginning, it's about being collaborative and working as partners. So again, I mean, it can be quite confusing, again, even though I've worked in the industry for quite a few years, and I've been to so many Future Labs and Biotech X and many, many other shows, which apologies if I've left them out. But there are so many companies offering services within this space. You don't always understand or quite clear how they all fit in with each other, you know. So if you were to say to me, where are you positioned against others, I would be hard-pressed to say definitively who your competitors were directly or not, because it constantly changes as well. Because people are acquiring, I mean, another company's recently just been acquired by Siemens, or will be. So again, where do they fit in now in relation to you? I don't know. I mean, only you'd be able to tell me that. So, but I would say that Zifo do position themselves very much as thought leaders and collaborators and partners, rather than just saying we're here to sell you something, which I think is very important, because again, in your presentation you talked about trust, and trust is the most fundamental thing in sales full stop, but I think particularly in a space like this where you're looking at high value and long sales pipelines and timeframes, it's all about trust and relationships. And if you don't have that, then you're not going to get the business in the long term. This event is a great event. I mean, I think it's a good way to bring people together, and as you said, it's all about participation and getting people to engage with each other, and I think this is certainly doing that because you have people across the whole value chain both speaking and attending, and that makes a massive difference in terms of how you can actually be practical and useful to the industry.